good people don't smoke marijuana.
I've known Larry for a long time.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show. The medical marijuana for you and me. Ah, yeah, the medical marijuana. Whoa, 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 ah, yeah, the medical. It's the medical marijuana show. You knew we know.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Medical Marijuana Radio. This one is for Saturday, October the 13th, 2018. I'm your host, Larry Love. We're here every week to bring you the latest information on the fight, the battle for legalization of medical cannabis and decriminalization and legalization of adult use cannabis as well. This week, our guest will be Jill Browning. She is the New Mexico chair she's the chair of the New Mexico Hemp Association, and we'll be talking about the first Santa Fe Hemp Fest that's going to be up here in Santa Fe next Saturday, the 20th. Here, and we're going to talk about growing and about the New Mexico hemp program as well. People in other states, hemp is going to be legal, so listen up. Okay, first up, though, as always, I've got news for you, and let me just bring that up here. I have a couple of stories. First of all, finally, Facebook has stopped blocking marijuana search results, and they say this is coming ahead of the Canadian legalization. This coming week, on the 17th of October, Canada will legalize and be open for adult use legalization. So Facebook, I guess, is coming around now. But here, this is even more important. This is from Philadelphia. Children from autism are needed for a medical marijuana study at the Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania. This is by Sam Wood, and this is from www.philly.com. Children's Hospital of Philadelphia is seeking patients to participate in observational study of medical cannabis. The study will not provide marijuana products to participants. Researchers want to partner with families whose children have been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and are already consuming medical cannabis from state-licensed dispensaries. Participation will be confidential, says Dr. Athena Zupa, director of CHOP's Center for Clinical Pharmacology. Participating families will be asked to undergo an hour-long interview in person or on the phone, provide information on the child's medical background, answer questions about their child's medical cannabis use and behaviors, and complete optional study materials, Zupa said in a letter to prospective parents. The hospital is pairing with Zelda Therapeutics, an Australian biopharmaceutical company, for what some advocates have described as the first major effort in the United States to study the effects of medical marijuana on children with autism. This is absolutely fantastic. If you want to read the rest of the article, go to www.2.philly.com. This is very, very exciting. And, of course, you know that Tricia Brick and some other people have been fighting to allow their children on the spectrum to be able to take their medicine at school. And it's controversial, and there's going to be a big cannabis event at the Roundhouse where this kind of thing will be discussed on October 25th, just a week or so away. All right, next up, the fight is going on. I'll see it when I believe it, or the reverse of that. Trump hints he will support lifting federal marijuana ban. Now, to me, I think everything Trump says is a smokescreen hiding from the real issues, but who knows? Let's hope it happens. Here's this report.
President Trump says he is likely to support bipartisan efforts in Congress to ease the federal ban on marijuana. The The legislation would allow states to decide what they want to do. The president's comments put him in conflict with Jeff Sessions. The attorney general, of course, has been outspoken opponent of pot. Steve Forbes, would you make that investment in marijuana right now?
I think marijuana is like smoking or any other substance. I don't know why it has this glamour. It's amazing. People who don't like regular smoking are saying, oh, we must legalize marijuana. Okay, it's going to be legalized one way or the other. Let's not have any illusions about what it can do to you. So let's take the glamour away. If states want to do it, they should do so, have the kind of restrictions you have on booze and cigarettes, because this can do you harm if you overdo it.
So you remove the federal regulation so they can actually do some banking on this and maybe even collect more taxes?
Oh, the states are always hungry for more taxes. The feds are always hungry for more taxes. They would do anything to get more taxes. So that's out there. But that's not the reason to do it. People are doing it, so therefore you got to deal with it. But deal with it in a way in which people know the health consequences of it, like anything else.
All right, Steve Forbes.
Yeah, Steve Forbes from the Forbes billionaire family that doesn't get the science. Let's see what happens. Listen, it's curing people from terrible diseases, Mr. Forbes. As soon as somebody you love is sick, you'll understand the health consequences of cannabis. Okay, here we go. This into the business, because this is really going to be big. We know that already. Canopy Growth, the chief head guy there, Bruce Linton, says cannabis could disrupt a $500 billion worth of industries. Here's this report.
Give me the size of what you think of the market that will be disrupted worldwide by cannabis.
Well, the conservative, cautious people say 200 million, and I think the ones that are getting closer to or billion, and the closer to accurate is probably 500 billion, because we disrupt alcohol potentially, cigarettes potentially in terms of smoking cessation and a whole thing. We really disrupt pharmaceutical, because whether or not you're geriatric care, you're dealing with arthritic conditions, you're someone who can't sleep, you're going through an oncology treatment, I think you're going to find cannabinoid therapies really hit there.
So I think that Mr. Forbes from the previous clip maybe should listen to Mr. Linton from Canopy Growth, because there is going to be the health consequences. Less people drinking, less people smoking, and people getting better. But here's another story about the medical cannabis. Forget stoners. The real money is in medical marijuana. This I like.
Forget stoners. The real money is in medical marijuana. 3 years ago, Dr. Lydia Hatcher had a straightforward answer when chronic pain patients came into her clinic in Hamilton, Ontario, asking for marijuana: no. Since then, whispers and research in the medical community about what the drug can do have sparked a change of heart. She's now prescribing pot and seeing the benefits in patients who have exhausted other options. One wheelchair-bound 97-year-old woman was able to get up and dance after receiving treatment for arthritis. When you see results like that, it makes you feel there's something more to this, Hatcher says, noting that more than 10% of her patients use only cannabis to treat their pain and related symptoms. All the focus this month is on Canada legalizing recreational use, but the real money could be made in medicine. More than 20 countries, including Germany, Mexico, and Australia, have approved the use of medical marijuana. Denmark and Luxembourg have taken steps to legalize the drug for medical use. The UK plans to allow prescriptions for cannabis-derived medicine by fall, and investors expect many more to follow. Medical marijuana sales are expected to dip in Canada when recreational use becomes legal, but significant growth is expected in markets where medical marijuana programs are emerging, according to a report from ArcView Market Research and BDS Analytics. The global medical pot market could be worth more than $50 billion by 2025, from $8 billion in 2017, 10 times the projected size of Canada's total marijuana sector. According to Pi Financial Corporation, medical is potentially bigger, for sure, as a percentage growth, says Bruce Linton, Chief Executive Officer of Canopy Growth Corporation. There are signs pharmaceutical companies are already coming on board. In June, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved GW Pharmaceuticals plc's Epidiolex to treat 2 rare forms of childhood epilepsy. It was the first medical treatment derived from the marijuana plant to get the green light for sale in the U.S. British Columbia-based producer Tilray Incorporated already has an agreement to develop products and delivery systems with Zondas, the Canadian division of Novartis International AG of Switzerland. Tilray could see a cash injection from a pharmaceutical company with possible investment from a global player occurring within the next 12 months, said Graham Crindler, an analyst at 8 Capital Corporation, in an August 13 report. Several companies are also actively seeking better ways to deliver medical cannabis that mimic traditional pharmaceuticals and offer more precise dosing, including soft gels and nasal sprays, says George Scorsis, CEO of Liberty Health Sciences Incorporated. The biggest opportunity for medical marijuana could be in pain treatment, Scorsis says. The opioid crisis across North America has physicians and patients seeking safer alternatives in the pain sphere. Opioid overdoses increased 30% from July 2016 through September 2017, according to the National Institute on Drug Abuse. And more than 115 Americans died daily from opioid overdoses, Bloomberg intelligence analysts Kenneth Shea and Brian Rye said in an August 17 report. Global pharmaceutical companies are terrified that medical cannabis products are a substitute for their opioid products, says Brendan Kennedy, CEO of Tilray. It's a big opportunity for Canadian companies, says Jason Zandberg, an analyst at Pi Financial. It really takes off in terms of market size when pain is covered.
You know, Canada's way ahead of us, but gee, don't they have like weird accent? That guy was very strange the way he reads anyway. Okay, moving on. Medical, right? It's going to be bigger than everyone thinks. They think it's going to disappear. It's not really going to disappear, but we do have to protect it, and you know how I feel about that. But in Hawaii, where they're just getting started with their medical program, more than 20% of Hawaii's medical marijuana products are rejected. That's why testing is so important.
Hawaii's first and largest medical cannabis testing lab says about a quarter of all the products it's required to test are not clean enough to sell.
Hawaii has more than 21,000 certified patients, and as Rick Daysog reports, this is the first time the company has released its results.
In its raw form, marijuana grown for a dispensary can pick up mold, yeast, and bacteria.
About 20 to 30% gets rejected. It fails the compliance tests. And I would say 95% of that is from biological organisms.
Michael Covington is Chief Operations Officer for Steep Hill, Hawaii, which operates the state's first and largest medical marijuana testing lab. He says mold, yeast, and bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli can thrive in Hawaii's humid weather. He added that unlike mainland growers, medical marijuana dispensaries in Hawaii rarely use pesticides, so that's not a big issue here.
We seldom pick up any pesticides, and if we ever do, it's usually a mistake. Somebody used the wrong can of something and sprayed it.
Rejected marijuana is either destroyed or broken down into oils and retested for contaminants. These results shouldn't be considered alarming because they're in line with what other states are finding, but they do show how important labs like these are for the consumers.
We're assuming that people that have compromised immune systems are going to be using this product, so we want to make sure it's clean, free of contamination. We're trying to give them medicine, not poison.
Right now, there are 2 of these labs on Oahu and 1 on Maui. Starting next week, Steep Hill will open its first lab in Kona to serve the growing Big Island market. Rick Daysog, Hawaii News Now.
So, listen, I remember the first Hawaiian I ever had was probably around 1971 or 72. Came in and like those big popcorn kind of metal cans and so forth. And boy, that was some incredible, seedless sensimilla, the first kind of sensimilla we've ever seen, and it was really, really good. So I hope that the program there and the people can learn how to grow and not have it contaminated. All right, we're going to move around the states now. That was all the way out in Hawaii, all the way across to Florida. True Leaf is one of the big, or I'm not even sure if they're the biggest, but they might be the biggest dispensaries and growers in Florida. And the CEO, Kim Rivers, speaks about the use of cannabis and getting off of opioid abuse.
We're seeing a huge transition, and that's actually one of our initiatives in front of the legislature this upcoming session, is to introduce policies to say, instead of only having opioids as an alternative, why not medical cannabis? As you probably know, there have been a number of recent studies that have come out that have shown that in states where medical cannabis programs are robust, the number of opioid prescriptions reduces dramatically. We also know from just firsthand true stories, which we have on our website every Tuesday, that a number of our patients are transitioning from opioids to medical cannabis very effectively, and it's a much safer and effective alternative.
That's right, and maybe the governor of New Mexico and the attorney that runs our health department and the health of every person in New Mexico should take that advice. They don't take the advice of the doctors. We have a panel of doctors here in our program in New Mexico that recommend, cannabis for certain afflictions and uses and so forth. And they've recommended over the last couple of years 2 or 3 times opioid abuse. And of course, the attorney who is practicing medicine without a license turns it down because she's a freaking Republican. Anyway, only a couple more months and they'll be gone. We need to fight for our right. Moving over to talk about some CBD. I believe this was from Wisconsin. Cannabis researcher weighs in on whether CBD oil is safe as a safe alternative.
Growing number of hemp CBD oil stores are popping up across southeast Wisconsin. The oil is used to treat a number of medical illnesses.
And our Ben Jordan talked to a cannabis expert to find out if these products are a safe alternative to common prescriptions.
Half a dozen stores across the Milwaukee area have started selling CBD oil over the past month like Infinite Vapor. However, one researcher tells me don't dump your prescriptions for the oils just yet.
Infinite Vapor, Matt speaking, how can I help you?
Ever since Mark Newkirk loaded his store shelves with CBD oil 2 weeks ago, the calls haven't stopped.
We have, the body creams and muscle creams to help with pain.
Why did you guys decide to start selling CBD?
People are using it for various reasons. Trying it as opposed to traditional medicines for things like pain, anxiety, insomnia.
Cecilia Hillard studies how cannabis affects people's nervous systems at the Medical College of Wisconsin.
I do think there probably are some good therapeutic benefits to CBD oil.
She's been paying close attention to CBD oil now that it's legal to grow, possess, and sell in the state.
Do you think this is a viable alternative for some illnesses for people who may be taking prescription pills?
Well, I think the jury is still out on the answer to that question.
Hillard says that's a conversation to be had with your physician.
The real types of studies which would give us confidence in saying, yes, you should take this instead of your drug for a disease have just not been done.
Hillard says there's currently only one FDA-approved CBD oil, and you won't be able to find it at stores like these. That's because it has to be purchased at a licensed pharmacy. In downtown Milwaukee, Ben Jordan, today's TMJ4.
Of course, they're talking about Epidiolex and the GW pharmaceutical product, and which is approved by the United States government. CBD, the World Health Organization has even said CBD has no negative side effects, and they think it's okay. But guess what? In Alabama, that's right, in Tuscaloosa, the police department has decided that the CBD is not good for you. Now, here's more people practicing medicine without a license. Here's the Tuscaloosa Police Department.
We've talked to a lot of people who have told us, well, medicinal marijuana is legal in the state of Alabama now. And that's incorrect. And they've told us, well, CBD oil is legal in the state of Alabama now. And that is incorrect. There are some very narrow defenses to the possession of marijuana 2 law that have led people to believe in social media opinions, and people talking on social media have led people to believe that it's legal and it's not.
When we posted this story yesterday, a common reaction seems to be, aren't there bigger fish to fry in Tuscaloosa? What would you say to somebody who has that outlook?
Well, we as the Narcotics Task Force have a responsibility to go after all the fish. This was based upon people coming and asking for business licenses. And that's what started this whole looking at it, was because businesses were saying, hey, can we sell this? And we gave, like I said, we gave what we knew to be the law at the time, but we were unable at the time to speak definitively on exactly what law meant what. And so that's what we tried to do.
Some of the people who are defending some of these stores that are open in Tuscaloosa are saying, we aren't trying to slide in under Carly's and Lenny's law. Hemp oil is protected in the federal farm bill. What would you say to those people, and why was it determined that in Tuscaloosa County that's not the case?
Because the state law looks at hemp oil the same as it looks at marijuana, okay? They both come from the same derivatives. Even the DEA's guidance says that it comes to be CBD oil. It requires parts of the cannabis sativa plant that are controlled to be the cannabinoid oil. It requires those parts, and so therefore, even if the oil comes from the hemp plants, which is a common defense to this, even if it does come from the hemp plant, it is coming still from cannabis sativa, and it is still coming from parts of the plant that are controlled under federal law and also under state law.
What happens to folks who don't remove it from their shelves? What's going to be the penalty?
They will be charged with distribution and sale. There is no mechanism under state law for any entity to sell or distribute CBD oil, even to the people who fall into the narrow exceptions in Lenny's law. There is no mechanism in state law for anyone to lawfully sell or distribute it.
So just to clarify, were there recommendations made to, say, the city of Northport, Tuscaloosa County, city leaders, county leaders, just saying maybe y'all shouldn't give business licenses for this at any point in time before there were business licenses?
When we spoke about it, some were satisfied with the level of information that we had, and some were not satisfied with the level of information and wanted more. That's what started us looking for the actual legal definitions through the district attorney's office, the Department of Forensic Sciences, so that we could give them the level of information that government entity was comfortable with, so that they could make the best decision that they could.
Well, you know, the South is the South. I guess everything is moving forward. It's just going to take time. Interpretation of some of these laws are important, and deciding what's legal and what's not is also important. Let's move over to Missouri. They're going to be voting on medical cannabis access. This is exciting. A lot of states are going to be voting next month, just in a couple of weeks.
November election now less than 4 weeks away. Missourians looking at not one, but 3 separate ballot initiatives surrounding marijuana use. KQ2's Sydney Holzfaster has more on what you can expect to see on the November ballot.
3 ballot initiatives are vying for support from Missouri voters on the use of medicinal marijuana.
It's important that people don't just vote for all 3 of those measures, because they are watering down the actual voice of the people for any one of those, and it's important that people understand the distinction.
All 3 would legalize growing, selling, and consuming marijuana products for medicinal purposes, with tax revenue benefiting veterans, medical research, and public safety.
The medical purposes that would benefit veterans and others in the state, but it also would bring jobs to the state, and those are additional benefits that haven't been calculated quite yet.
But local law enforcement have some concerns about the legalization process.
There's so many things you have to start changing and looking at. The training, on the law enforcement side, on the government side, is regulating that, from the regulation of it to the enforcement side of it, and it'll be a learning curve for everybody.
The largest concern, how medicinal marijuana will be regulated throughout the state.
We start seeing, the black market side of it, or the street level side of it, where, individuals are growing the marijuana and selling it in dispensary, but their money side, or the moneymaker side of it, may be selling to people illegally outside of that area.
And depending on which amendment passes, medical marijuana could be taxed anywhere from 2 to 15%. But ultimately, it's up to the voters to decide how Missouri will handle medical marijuana going forward.
All of this doesn't matter if we don't get out to vote on November 6th.
Sydney Holzfaster, KQ2, your local news leader.
There's a lot of things that matter when we vote this year. It's really, really important. Please go out there, and wherever you are, and vote your conscience. All right, before we take a break and come back with Jill Browning and talk about hemp and the Hemp Fest here in Santa Fe, MedMen is a company with an extremely large amount of funding, and they're really expanding. They're in California, and they're in Nevada. They're opening up a new store in Las Vegas, Nevada, and here's this report.
This is our second branded store here in Las Vegas. This is the tourist mecca of the world, and we're very excited to be here. This is our first store in all of our stores, perhaps the first cannabis store in the world to have multilingual iPads. So anybody from the world can come here, and if you speak Spanish or 8 different dialects of Chinese, you can still interact with our iPads. So let me tell you a little bit about the different products we have here. So this week we're also launching our state-made product line. These are pre-rolls, flowers, vaporizer pens, and drops. All of those combined account for about 90% of the product category in today's cannabis market. So we're very excited. The thing about state-made that makes it unique, aside from its beautiful aesthetics that you can see here, is the fact that we're going away from, what you might call the legacy of marijuana, the names that we use, such as sativa, indica, and the different strains, and go really to what consumers are looking for in this market, right? They're looking for, what effect does this help me with? So if I'm having trouble falling asleep, you don't have to ask people, do I need a sativa or indica? You get the ZZZ because that helps you fall asleep.
That's Las Vegas, Nevada, and it'll be interesting to see what it's like. I'm going to be going to some conventions, I believe, in the next few months, so we'll see people there. We'll be right back with Jill Browning. We're going to talk about the Santa Fe Hemp Fest and about growing hemp right after this.
It's all about the 420 MMJRadio.
We're learning about medical marijuana, what it is, what it does, and giving you the facts to know your body. First up, let's get a dose of vocabulary. The wide world of marijuana can be confusing, and understanding basic terminology can help you to navigate the facts. Marijuana is often referred to as cannabis, as it's part of the cannabis family of plants that also includes hemp. The marijuana plant contains over 100 different chemicals called cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are active chemicals that can alter the mind and body in a variety of ways, some of which have proven beneficial. 2 cannabinoids from the plant that are being studied and used for their medicinal value are THC and CBD. THC contains the mind-altering properties associated with feeling high, while CBD offers health benefits without causing a high. Medical marijuana is not currently considered a cure, but it is used for therapeutic benefits of symptom relief. THC can reduce nausea, increase appetite, decrease pain and inflammation, and help with muscle control problems. CBD has benefits including pain reduction, controlling epileptic seizures, and it may even be used to treat mental illness and addiction. The therapeutic benefits of medical marijuana can help those suffering with multiple sclerosis, cancer, HIV/AIDS, glaucoma, and Crohn's disease, just to name a few. While the FDA has not approved marijuana as medicine, the study of its cannabinoids has led to 2 FDA-approved medications that use cannabinoid chemicals in a pill. Let's dig deeper into how marijuana interacts with the body and tips on access with our expert, Dr. Caroline Hartridge. Dr. Hartridge, how exactly do THC and CBD interact with the body?
The CBD and THC interact within the endocannabinoid system, and this is the largest neurotransmitter system within the body, and it helps regulate or modulate our homeostasis, everything from temperature to appetite to reproduction to sleep-wake cycles. Those 2 chemicals in particular work in a lock and key mechanism where receptors are the lock and CBD and THC are the different keys. Once the CBD and the THC interact with that receptor, they can stimulate bone health, they can decrease blood pressure, and they can modulate your perception of pain and even your memory of an unfavorable event.
What are the different ways to take medical cannabis?
In its whole flower form or whole plant form, and people typically know that is weed or marijuana. And in that form, you can smoke it in a joint or a bong, you can vape it, or you can eat it. In states where the flower is not legal and it's just a concentrate, the flower's been broken down into CBD and THC and then put back together in just concentrate forms. And in those states, you can have it in a vape form, in a pill, in a tincture, or a spray.
What's your advice for somebody wanting to use medical cannabis?
So I would start with your state laws, and you can check those out online. Department of Health is very transparent on what's available state to state. And then I would go to your primary care provider or whichever doctor you see most regularly, because these products will interact with your regular pharmaceuticals, and it might even decrease the amount of dose you need. So I would start there, have an open and honest conversation with your provider, let them know that you're interested, and you want to know about the risk to benefit ratio of the medical cannabis product versus some of the ones you might already be on.
That is some very important and helpful advice. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Hartridge. And now you know your body.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show.
Hey, this is Scott from Rare Dagnus. You're listening to Medical Marijuana Radio.
And we're back. And online today I have Jill Browning. Jill is the chair of the New Mexico Hemp Association, and they are one of the sponsors of next week's Hemp Festival here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, over at the Rail Yard District on Saturday, October 20th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Welcome to Medical Marijuana Radio, Jill.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Larry.
So it looks to me like you're going to have a lot of great speakers. I'm seeing Doug Fine, who's a controversial guy for sure, and Veronica Carpio coming down from Colorado, who knows a lot of stuff, and Sam Palumbo and all kinds of other people. Lyra Barron from Fruit of the Earth is going to be speaking, Brett Phelps, and there's also going to be a panel discussion. Tell us about this hemp festival. I think it's the first one that we've had up here in Santa Fe. Tell us what's going to go on next Saturday.
It is one of the first hemp festivals in Santa Fe. It's primarily a kickoff event for the new hemp program in New Mexico.
So it's a free event, right? And it's going to be outside at the Rail Yard District. That's
yes.
Where there's a lot of nice stores. Second Street Brewery is there. It's in that area. So there's going to be booths and people are going to be exhibiting and teaching. So tell us about some of that, if you could.
There's going to be a lot of support for the industry, and there's going to be a lot of education. So we, now that New Mexico has a hemp program, and it should be all complete, and licenses should be issued by the end of the year, there's going to be a lot of folks that want to get into the hemp business, and they're going to have a lot of questions. And this hemp festival is one of the first of many, hopefully, that will help those people become educated and provide contact supports and people that new farmers or new manufacturers that want to get into the industry. We're hoping to link them up with people who are already in it so that they can learn, and New Mexico can have one of the best hemp programs in the nation.
Well, that's really something that I've been looking forward to for a really long time. Now, you are a hemp farmer, and you know about that kind of stuff. So how easy, or let's put it this way, how hard is it for someone who's never grown a hemp plant before to go into that business? How much education do they need? Should they go to Oaksterdam? I mean, what should they do to educate themselves on growing?
No, they don't have to go to Oaksterdam for it. But pairing up with somebody else that's already a hemp farmer is really crucial. There is a lot to learn. The soil has to be amended correctly. They have to know what the pH of their soil is. They have to know how they're going to be watering it, how often they're going to be watering it. Every farm is different. Whether you're on a drip irrigation system or if you're flooding it through a ditch system, which there's a lot of ditch systems, the acequias associations in New Mexico, or if you're on a pivot. So there's just a lot of questions people are going to be asking. How do I water it? How many plants do I put in the ground per acre? When do I plant? How do I plant? How do I harvest? There's from beginning to end. When do I get started, and when do I go all the way to harvest, and then what do I do? There's going to be a lot of questions, and it is really important for folks to be able to talk to other farmers or other people in the industry and learn all the details of the farming first and foremost, because that's where you start. How
much different is it to growing hemp than the THC high THC plants? Because cannabis is cannabis, and of course the definition there's a few different definitions of hemp. Is the definition here in New Mexico for industrial hemp going to be under 3% or under THC, or is it something different?
Okay, so the federal definition is going to be the same as in the New Mexico definition is going to be the same as the federal definition. of hemp. The guidelines for hemp is a cannabis plant that has 0.3% or less THC. So it's 0.3% THC. That's a really important number for everybody to know. And yes and no, hemp is grown the same as cannabis. So a few things that make it different is really I think the biggest thing is scale. When you are growing hemp plants in your backyard under a PPL, you have a maximum of, I want to say it's 6 plants at one time that you can be growing under a PPL.
Okay, are we talking about it?
Are
we talking about the hemp PPL that will be available, or are we talking about medical cannabis PPL?
So the medical cannabis. What I'm comparing it to is in New Mexico, there's the only people that can be growing cannabis is going to be a person that has a PPL in the medical cannabis program or the producers in the medical cannabis program. And if you look at what people in New Mexico do to grow cannabis, one of the biggest differences with growing hemp is going to be the scale, how many plants you can grow. So as an individuals can grow, I think, up to 6 plants. And the producers, you probably know better than me, is it the 300 count or is it 400 count now?
Well, actually, the maximum, they have a sliding scale. The maximum that currently the LMPPs here in New Mexico can grow is 450. So
450. Okay.
450, right? But,
and
go ahead.
So when you grow 1 acre of hemp, typically you're going to put 2,000 plants per acre. And so just the mass quantity of plants that you're going to be growing, if you have 5 acres, you'll have 10,000 plants. And these plants, very few people have seeds. So when you grow a crop outside on a farm, you're typically going to go to ground with either clones or seedlings. And so you have to figure out how you're going to plant that many plants all at once. You're going to have to figure out how to water them. You're going to have to figure out how to feed them nutrients. And there are some similarities, but just because of the mass number of plants that you'll be dealing with, it makes it completely different from what people how they typically grow cannabis.
So,
and
I was just going to ask, the spacing is a lot different, too, than it would be with high THC cannabis, right? Because I've seen hemp fields, and they just seem to be like all jammed in together as opposed to high THC cannabis. Is that true?
That's right.
Uh-huh. And what about...
That's right. So,
go ahead.
Hemp is an agricultural. This is one of the other mindsets that people have to switch to. Hemp is going to be an agricultural product. People are going to be growing it just like they grow corn or tomatoes or any other crop. And you want to maximize your profit at the end of the year. So you want to maximize how many plants you can get into a field per acre. And so that's one of the reasons why you see them. You do see them a lot closer together. Usually 3 to 4 feet on center is a term that we use in the field. And so those are the kinds of things that we hope to be sharing. That's the kind of information we want to be sharing at the Santa Fe Hemp Festival and any other of the other events that we continue to do as people get into hemp in New Mexico.
So again, the Santa Fe Hemp Festival is going to be next Saturday, the 20th of October, 2018, 9 to 6 p.m. at the Rail Yard here in Santa Fe. Again, Doug Fine's going to be speaking. Veronica Carpio is coming down. Now, Veronica is just a dynamo. I mean, I've been watching what she's been doing, and she's on the path that CBD and hemp needs to be classified in each state as a food. Are you on board with all that?
I think we are. You know, it's difficult because it's you're dealing with the FDA, and if it's going to be a drug, then it's going to be the FDA will make it a very limited drug. There'll be a lot more rules and regulations, and people that are farming it now and making products out of it, that may be taken away. So we definitely don't want it to become a drug. So what are other options would be like a supplement, a health food supplement, and that would put it in the food category. So I believe that's the correct path to go.
Right. They've already done that in Colorado and passed that. So everybody needs to look at how they did that and do that in their state. I mean, this is going to be an amazing increase in jobs in the hemp industry, for people, and it's going to help states a lot. So I'm really excited about New Mexico having this. Now, you've read the New Mexico rules, I'm sure. Are there things is there a panel of people that are like talking about things that need to be changed before this stuff goes into effect? And do you know when this goes into effect?
The next step is for the state to take it to public hearings, and there's 4 that are scheduled. In fact, the first one is coming up this Friday, and I believe that one is in Las Cruces. There's 3 other public hearings that will take place. One will be in Espanola, one will be in Roswell, and I believe that the last one will be in Las Vegas. I'm not 100% sure about that one. But so there's 4 total. The Department of Ag will be holding a public hearing. People will have a chance to speak. And this is the last step for the state before they put everything into effect. These 4 meetings gives the public a chance to speak up. There has been quite a few people that have talked to the Department of Ag and during this process of writing the rules. And Kathleen O'Day has been one of those people. Several people in the industry that are from New Mexico have been helping with the writing or giving suggestions for the writing of the rules and regulations. And New Mexico is actually going to have a great set of rules and regulations. I have looked over them. They're not complete. I've seen the latest version. And they are fantastic rules and regulations. It gives the farmers and it gives the manufacturers a lot of room to do their business, and that's what makes it so great. There's not a lot of restrictions, and as long as people are following the rules and regulations, we're going to have a great hemp industry in New Mexico.
I'm so looking forward to that. Are there already rules in place on what to do with a harvest that's too hot?
That's in the rules and regulations, and so testing. They are proposing testing. The last time I saw their proposal for testing was that the individual farmer would have to take their crop, a sampling of their crop, to a testing lab, which the state will pick who those testing labs are, and I'm not sure that they didn't have a very specific at the last time I read them, they did not have a very specific answer as to is it going to get cut down, is it going to get burned, is it going to be taken away, is it going to be turned back into the soil? Those are all some options.
Well, I have an option that they should use, and if you could tell them about it. If it's too hot and it's got too much THC in it, but still has lots of CBD, why not get it into the medical program somehow? If it tests good for everything else, why destroy something that took months and months for farmers like you to grow? And it's only been a few years that hemp's being grown around this country, so it's going to take a few generations to make sure that these cultivars are below the 0.3%. So do you think that's a good idea, what I'm just thinking of?
That's a great idea. How feasible it is, I don't know, because taking a product from the field, it costs a lot of money to harvest, to dry it, and then to prep it for extraction, and then it costs a lot of money to extract the material to make it into a product that the industry could use. So there would be some issues, I'm sure. Who's going to pay for that to get it into the medical cannabis program? So it's just feasibility there. I love your idea. I just don't know how feasible it is.
Well, it might be something. Okay, so you as a farmer, if somehow some of your stuff got to be too hot, over the 3%, if it's destroyed, then you've lost all that money. It's a way for the farmer to get back some money, for all those months of growing. I think
our approach to that is because cannabis is a plant. Hemp is a part of the cannabis family, and there's all kinds of factors that can spike the THC level in a plant. And I think what the farmers have to think about before they get into this industry is how are they going to manage the THC level, and testing is a key component in farming hemp. Everybody should be testing their plants at the end of August and weekly or bi-weekly through September so they know when to harvest. And so that's really the key. I mean, if somebody takes if somebody takes the crop to all the way through October, you have a chance of going hot. And so it's really, really important.
Very interesting.
To manage your crop and get it tested and know when to cut it down.
So you're saying, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're saying that so in the growing of this hemp cultivar of cannabis, you can test the I guess it's going to be THCA at that point, obviously, and if it's getting too close to 0.03, then you could cut it down. Then if it tests under, and then
absolutely,
is it going to change during curing?
No, it won't.
Okay.
It will not continue to grow the THC level. But that's the key, is managing your crop and getting it tested, developing a relationship with the labs that you're going to be testing with so that you know when to test, how often to test, and then, knowing when you should be cutting down. It's really the responsibility of the farmer. And so I think that's the front line of defense. You don't want to lose your crop. You don't want to lose the investment that you've made into your farm. You want to be able to take that crop to market, and that's the key to doing it.
Right. Let me ask you this, just off the top. Does the hemp, industrial hemp plant to take less water than the high THC plant?
No, it should be about the same. They should be all the same. So it depends on which. There are several different varieties of hemp. There's what we call a medicinal CBD hemp. Looks more like a marijuana plant, and then there's industrial hemp. You can have the fiber or the seeded plants. That's what people make the hemp hearts out of, and hemp seeds and all of that. Or the fiber. That's what is taken to market to make clothing or paper and so forth.
Gotcha. Fuel and all that kind of stuff.
Fuel.
Too, right?
There's so many. There's thousands and thousands of products, and so each one is a little bit different, and each one has a little bit of a different water requirement. But also, your soil, what type of ground you're farming on is really important in that fact too. If you are in a heavier clay soil, then you might need a little bit less water. If you're in a sandier soil, you might need a little bit more because you're going to have more drainage. So every field is different, and so that's another key component. You need to be aware of what kind of farm you have and how the soil holds water, and that's going to determine how much you need.
Is there any difference in growing as far as using pesticides, or are these more susceptible to bugs and so forth, or is it exactly the same? Hemp, cannabis is cannabis.
It should be the same, and I'm hoping that the goal of New Mexico farmers is going to be that we're going to have pesticide-free crops. I mean, we should all be growing organically, especially if you're growing CBD, because people use CBD they ingest it, they use it topically, and we should all be growing organically. And there are ways of doing that, and so having a good pest management program is important. And knowing what kind of nutrients to give your plants that are organic, that's going to let you have a successful grow, is all important.
Does New Mexico have definitions of what's organic, and is your field organic after X amount of years and so forth? There is. Do you know what they are?
Yeah. So the Department of Ag, and that's why the Department of Ag is a key component in our hemp program, because there are in place. There's lots of rules and regulations in place for farmers concerning pest management programs, concerning pesticides, concerning the types of nutrients that people use if you're going to have an organic farm. there are very specific guidelines to go by in the state of New Mexico and on a federal level.
I know that in California, where they really started organic rules and regulations, I think it might take X amount of years to certify a field. Is that correct to hear?
It can. So it kind of depends on if you have soil that has not ever had chemicals put on it, then you might be able to, within a very short period of time, you have your soil tested, and you might be able to, in a very short period of time, become organic. If you are using a farm that has had previous exposure to pesticides or other kinds of chemical nutrients, then you may have to work the soil and work into the program, and it might take a long time. You're right.
And does
the crop can be?
Go ahead.
The crop can be grown what's called natural. There's natural growing. There's organic growing, and it's really important, especially when we're starting out, not to be spraying our plants with a lot of pesticides or other chemicals. And that's one of the things that we hope to be able to talk to people at the Santa Fe Hemp Festival in 2 weeks or in a week and a half.
Yeah, next week.
Next week.
A week from tomorrow.
Yeah, next week is coming up.
A week from tomorrow, October 20th, at the Rail Yard District here from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's a free event, people, so get out there. There's going to be products. There's going to be fun, as the flyer says, fun, education, info, vendors, and food. Also, again, Doug Fine, Veronica Carpio, Sam Palumbo, Clarence and Sonia Bachmeier, Lyra Barron, Roma Land, Gloria Castillo and Jerry Fuentes, Brett Phelps, and a panel discussion. Do you know who's going to be on the panel? Will you be on the panel?
That panel discussion is going to be local people that have CBD shops that are retail shops in the state. So what we try to do is everybody on that panel has an association, has an existing association with either hemp or CBD products. And that panel is going to be specifically about products. Hemp has nothing to do with the medical cannabis program, is totally separate. And our focus is to get people on the panel or the speakers that are going to, have really good information about hemp. Most of these people are from Colorado because that's the closest hemp program to our state. And so we're bringing down a lot of information, a lot of years of experience to help the growers down here get a good head start on everybody.
Fantastic. I really look forward to it. And I just have one more question for you before we wrap. And that is, in the New Mexico Agricultural Department and all these rules and regulations, is there a system set up in there for selling seeds? Who will be allowed to make and sell seeds for hemp?
So the Department of Agriculture is not going to oversee clones or seed selling. So we're bringing people down from Colorado. We have a business called Route 66 Seed Company. We're going to be selling seeds actually at the Santa Fe Hemp Festival, and we're also going to be taking orders for clones. We also have an association where we will be giving clones to farmers through a contract where we grow with the farmer, and there'll be no charge for the clone, so that smaller farms can get started without a big investment. And so the farmers in New Mexico are going to have to source out their genetics. They're going to have to understand what the makeup of the genetics mean. They're going to have to learn things like ratios in the genetics, their percentages, how they end up yielding at the end of the year, those kinds of things. So there's a lot of homework the farmers are going to have to do before they actually can get it's good that these rules and regulations are coming into place now so that the farmers will have a few months of working on getting their farms ready for a planting in the spring.
So, okay, I understand that. Now, you just said that there's going to be seeds for sale at this event, and who's allowed to buy seeds at this point? Is there no...
Okay, so on a federal level, there is a act called the Omnibus Act, and in that act it defines what part of the hemp plant is legal for crossing state lines. So that's one of that's a bit of information that is really important. This Omnibus Act allows any part of the hemp plant to cross state lines. We can go from East Coast to West Coast with any part of our plant with the exception of a rooted live plant. So seeds, viable seeds, are allowed to cross the state line. Dried, harvested hemp material is allowed to cross the state line. The oils, the isolates, and the other products that are made from the dried material is allowed to cross the state line. So
Good.
seeds are legal in New Mexico. Anybody can buy them. You can own them. You don't have to have an industrial hemp license yet. You have to have an industrial hemp license to grow the seeds. You can buy them, but to grow them, you have to get a license.
Okay, that's what I was worried about. Okay, so it is defined, and that's really fantastic. So
Yes,
great. So
there's a federal law that allows seeds to be in New Mexico.
fantastic, Jill. Well, Jill, I want to thank you. Is there any final thoughts that you would like to get out before we wrap?
We are super excited about the Santa Fe Hemp Festival. We have an organization called the New Mexico Hemp Association. That association is member-driven, and the association is put together to support, to educate, and also to be a voice in New Mexico for the hemp industry. Our association has worked with the Department of Agriculture. We will continue to work with them and the state to ensure that the state has a great hemp program.
Well, thank you for all your hard work. I really appreciate that, and I look forward to seeing you. Was there something you wanted to get out right there, and I stopped you? Okay.
So the members, we will have applications for people to join as members, so that they can get all of the information that we can possibly think of to send out. We're going to have a website, and we're going to have lots of meetings. We're going to have a lot more festivals and expos. The New Mexico Hemp Association is really going to work hard to bring out as much information and help that we can to the new hemp farmers in New Mexico.
Well, you know what? It's a long time coming. I mean, this plant should have been kept going for the last 80 years, and finally it's happening. So thank you for everything that you do in this industry. I look forward to seeing you at the event next Saturday, October 20th, at the Rail Yard from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. here in Santa Fe. Jill Browning, the chair of the New Mexico Hemp Association, thank you for talking about this event and explaining a lot of stuff about the New Mexico hemp rules and just about growing and so forth. Thanks, Jill. Appreciate it.
All right. Super. Thank you. I appreciate you, Larry. Have a good day.
All right. You too. We'll be right back after this.
the medical marijuana, the medical marijuana radio, radio show.
Well, I want to thank my guest, Jill Browning, and we'll see her and everybody next week at the rail yard here in Santa Fe for the Hemp Fest. Also want to thank my two radio mentors, both with the initials HS. Thank you for your inspiration. If you'd like to be on the show, if you have a product to sell, a story to tell, you're a patient, an advocate, an activist, it's info@mmjradio.com. Again, info@mmjradio.com. If you'd like to hear some of our older shows, you can go to medicalmarijuanaradio.com or mmjradio.com. My YouTube channel is LSLove88 on SoundCloud and Spreaker. We're MMJ Radio. We're on CannabisTube.net and also on NowTV.com, channel 937. And coming soon, theCannaChannel.com.
Can make you feel much better. Yes, you medical, medical, the medical marijuana for you and me. The medical marijuana.
Shalom.
Oh yeah, and fuck Trump.
Yeah.